Hey guys, this is Nick with Cymatics, and in this video I will be making a Travis Scott style dark melody. And the way I'll do this is I will just simply boot up an instance in Omnisphere. And what we want to do is find some like analog sounding synths and use like a Phrygian scale. And let's look at through synth poly. Typically we want something that has like a brassy quality to it. Not quite like that though. That's reasonable as a start. And we're just going to put together a basic chord progression. At 140. Okay, let's lower the velocities. Extend the chord. This is kind of a common progression in his songs. Cool. Let's look for some other sounds. Make this a bit quieter. I kind of like that. Okay, we'll duplicate that across. So first time over it'll play this phrase, and the second time over I'm just gonna add a little note on top somewhere. Getting there. I'm gonna do some processing and stuff later. Let's just duplicate this over, and I'm gonna find some kind of a bass, soft and warm. We don't want anything too bright. Perfect. I'm just gonna consolidate these chords here and loop them so I can loop them later. Oh, there we go. There it is. Okay, now we're just going to delete these chords here. We're just going to write a bass line, rename this bass, all these chords. I don't know, make this purple, or blue. And we're just going to follow the root notes of the chords with the bass. A bit low. I'm gonna do a bit of a slide here up to this B. Hopefully it's legato. Yeah, it does, kind of. Perfect. I will increase the velocities because it's a bit dull. And it's going to open up the filter a little bit on the synth, on the bass. And I'll make this legato as well. Try transposing this up. Okay, let's do some edits to the synths themselves. I'm going to link these two parameters, these two pages, reduce the sustain and then increase the decay. I want the synth to kind of, you know, end after a while. Right now it's kind of infinite. You hear that? Otherwise it just goes on forever. Like that. I'd rather it end. That's fine. One thing you can do is add a lot of distortion. I can try using vinyl distortion. I mean, they all kind of do the same thing. Pedal might be interesting. It might be loud though. It's starting to take some shape. I want the slides to be a bit longer. I'm gonna go into the bass. This is a trillion bass, but can we find yeah. It's a bit long. We'll duplicate the chords over and keep the chords and find some kind of a pad sound to sort of fill out the space. We're also going to use some reverb on the original chords to give it a bit more of an expansive feeling. But that can also be helped with a pad. You don't always need to use reverb, you can just use a pad. That'll get you the same result, but with more texture, because it's a different sound. Hear how right away we get a really cool sound. On this, I'm thinking we can reduce the cutoff, increase the envelope depth, increase the decay of the envelope. Right, that's what happens. But now if we increase the depth a bit, and then increase the decay. Okay. Okay, so I don't want the envelopes to stop when I bend, so I think I'm going to click. Yeah. All that does is that it restarts the envelopes. Versus, right? Okay. That's better. Alright, now I want to go back, and I mean, I'm kind of finicking with this. Essentially just trying to get the tone of the bass right, because obviously we're distorting it a lot. Maybe... Okay, take me back to Trillion. Okay, I want to remove that last note. That's fine. We can add a bit of chorus onto this to make it wide. Pitch modulation, chorus ensemble. Remove the dry wet, or reduce it rather. Use the high pass filter so it's not too muddy. Okay, kind of like how the bass is. Okay. Let's go into here. Maybe we can reduce the velocity even more. Gives it a bit more of a calm vibe, which is cool. I also kind of want to increase the decay of the filter. And I encourage you guys to kind of play with the settings of every synth patch that you try, because you can really kind of hone in on something that you like. That's a lot nicer. Obviously we can put a chorus on here. Kind of sounds like a Juno, so we can... If you ever want to like make a sound a little bit more lush or kind of rich sounding and simultaneously vintage sounding, then pull out a chorus. It's very useful for that purpose. Don't overuse it because everything is just going to be wishy-washy all over the place. Okay. I'm kind of liking how that's coming, and I will put some reverbs and delays and stuff on here. So I'll use a return track, a couple of them, and I'm thinking we can try just a reverb or a hybrid reverb. Delete this, dry wet all the way up. Let's just try this. And just, I'm gonna shove it into this return track. So I'm probably gonna look for something a little bit more algorithmic. That's nice, actually. Click vintage. I can't make it vintage, I guess. Not sure why, frankly. I'm gonna EQ away some of the lows and some of the highs as well. And I'm gonna reduce the amount. I'm gonna cut away a bit more of the lows on the actual wet signal itself, because I don't like the resonances in it. That's just kind of common with reverbs. And And on the other return, I'm going to put a delay. I'm going to reduce the filter, make it more of a tighter band, with the same kind of reasoning as the other one. I don't want any lows or highs. Maybe put ping pong. I'm going to disable sync, and I'm just going to kind of play with it to see what's a good timing. It's going to bounce around left and right because it's set to ping pong, right? So. Do a little bit of modulation, but it has to be really slight because whenever you modulate a delay, the timing of it creates like a really aggressive pitch modulation, which might be a little bit too much, but we'll see. Like you can hear that now. But it gives a kind of a chaotic feeling. A little bit seasick, but when done tastefully, it's fine. On the pads, I'm going to reduce some, we don't really need much, but I do want to boost the highs. I'm making certain notes louder than others to kind of carry a sort of internal melody. Okay, one more thing I want to do with the synth itself. I want to reduce the attack time a tiny bit. Maybe on the filter, maybe on the amplitude envelope, maybe both. Then you get this kind of wow. Okay, now we should add like a lead. No, that took a little bit long, but with these kinds of melodies, you kind of really need to hone in on the synths themselves, and for that you need to kind of go into the nitty-gritty of each parameter. And sometimes that takes a while, but it's worth it. I will call this lead. And what am I trying to do here? Okay. So that's phasing, obviously, because it's a bass. We want to delete these. I'm just going to use the same, delete the MIDI, do some kind of a lead. And for that, we're going to go to synth mono. And you want to look for like vintage analog style stuff. Already really good. so we're gonna keep that, and we also have to modify the synth a bit. So one thing you can do, obviously, if you can play keys, kind of just record yourself riffing over it, but I'll do it here. So obviously, like the bends and stuff are really important. Okay, so what I want to do is increase the velocities. Reduce the envelope depth. I don't want an envelope on the cutoff. Okay. Increase glide time a bit. Okay. You can also experiment with some arpeggiated ideas. One-eighth. It's easier to draw in. Reduce the glide time a bit. a bit of the low end stuff because it comes in and out. Maybe send it to some delays. Like that. If you start to hear that all the elements kind of start to melt into each other and you can't really distinguish things clearly, that's fine, like in my opinion. I think it's like kind of a textural effect anyways. And obviously, I mean, you can keep going, like you can just keep adding stuff, making it more and more expansive. Sky's the limit. It's meant to sound really spacious and ornate, so you can kind of, as long as everything's kind of in key and isn't too crowded, you can kind of keep going. So maybe you can look for like an arpeggio of some kind, maybe an arpeggiated lead or an arpeggio of like some weird pluck or something. BPM, analog. Kind of bring them in and out to keep because the chords are really long, you kind of want to keep them going somehow. So maybe halfway through you can introduce this ARP thing. We can sound match that. pretty cool. Just a kind of a textural thing. EQ some highs away from the bass. Okay, now we're starting to clip, which is fine because we're on our way to finishing this. Okay, we will put some RC20. We want to make it sound vintage to really max out the vintage component. Everything is kind of analog synths and stuff. It's probably been recorded to tape. Reduce the gain so we're not clipping. Reduce the distortion. That's pretty full sounding to me. That's pretty cool. We can also resample this just for fun. Okay, disable RC20 now because the resampling actually records the master output. Try transposing it down. That sounds pretty vintage to me. So once you like put in the hard work to like put in all these crazy synths and textures and stuff with the reverbs and choruses, you end up getting this kind of soup of sound where no like singular moment is always the same as the last. So you can apply all these effects and transpose up and down and do all these cool like reverses and stuff, and it'll sound really authentic and like just interesting. That's why I like transposing it down, speeding it up, reversing it. It all sounds really cool because they're not just like static, you know, synthesizers or like crappy patches that we didn't really think about. I kind of like the... Anyways, a lot of different possibilities here, but yeah, I hope you guys learned something about how to make like an analog style Travis Scott melody. Hope you enjoyed it, and as always, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.